What is going on, everybody? This is Franco with Hear Me Out podcast and Frank Analysis with a very special event here. I have two very special guests here, Jordan from Yellow Brick Road and Israel S. Daly from Big Talk, Little Talk. You guys want to introduce yourselves and give a shout out?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Jordan from the Yellow Brick Road. People call me Yellbro. I got a little YouTube channel, the Yellow Brick Road. I got a Twitter account at Yellbro. And I only really have one thing to say. If anyone green screens this fucking video and puts dicks in the background, you are banned for life. I will find you. I will find you somehow. And I'd say CIA something, you're done. That's it.
So I'm Israel from Big Talk, Little Talk. So you can check me out over on YouTube, on Twitter. I'm at Israel's Daily, and I do a lot of video essays now. Big fan of Tulsi Gabbard's campaign, and looking forward to this discussion about the left and religion.
Yeah, definitely check these two channels out. Subscribe to them, and as you can see from my background, these two are going to have a debate. And the debate is going to be on should progressives court religious voters. Now, Israel S. Daly made a video last week on Big Talk, Little Talk called What Happened to the Religious Left? Now, historically, the left had prominent religious preachers like Malcolm X, MLK Jr., and other religious figures like JFK. And since then, the left has grown more secular, and religious people on the left have not had as loud of a voice as they used to. Yellbro made a response video about how pandering to those groups won't work unless you actually mean it. So my first question to both of you is if you could please introduce and elaborate your side of the argument, and then I will ask more specific questions going forward. You have 3 minutes to answer. I have a timer here. I'll let you know when the time is up. You don't have to use the full 3 minutes. So I'll start with the for side. Israel is for using religion to court religious voters among progressives. So I'll start with you, Israel.
So first I want to say that I'm not really saying that Democrats or progressives should be more Christian or capitulate their views to the whims of religious audiences. Only that they should take religious a little bit more seriously, because many Americans are religious, and Democrats or progressives, wherever you align, you ought to be able to speak to all kinds of folks, unless you really don't believe in the electoral process, in which case I don't really have an argument for you. I wish you the best on your revolutionary escapade. But if you really do care about winning, I think those building bridges is an important thing. So I mean, it's a political advantage, you know what I mean, and it really just honors the dignity of many of these religious folks. I guess it's all open with that.
All right, so Bro, you want to respond to that? Give your side of the argument.
Yeah, I want to say that I basically agree with everything you just said there. My thing was that I understand how people could take what's said there as far as courting the religious people in politics and trying to bring them to your side. People might view that in a Michael Brooks style version of that, which is hey, we like Christ too. Come over here. Come join us. It's to where the only thing they're really talking about is just winning. It's not about honestly sharing cultures, sharing spirituality. It's more of Bernie needs, a couple more votes here and there in each state, and these religious guys, there's a lot of them. Maybe we can pick off a couple few, and they'll join us, and we can win. And once I hear that shit, so it was basically me just I didn't really disagree with Israel in my video. It was more of a warning: be careful of people that are going to do crap like this. There you go.
Right. So would you say that people like Pete Buttigieg who go into churches, the African American community, and sit there next to the older African American women singing the same songs and preaching, during election cycles, that's what you don't want the progressives to turn into? Am I getting that right?
Yes, and like Biden, the way they courted like black Southern voters. They went into the churches. Clyburn probably deeply entrenched in the black community there with especially the black church. All that pandering crap I do not want. Like, your message is worthless to me if you're already breaking them just to win, quote unquote win. So.
Right, but I mean, any attempt by progressive seculars to go in and try to even speak to them, wouldn't that even come off as pandering? I mean, they honestly are more secular on the left, so if they tell you, hey, I want to win, I understand your concerns, and I'll try my best not to, seem as like a Pete Buttigieg figure that just goes in during election season, but we're here to organize these folks, we're here to align with some of the real believers who are left-leaning, I mean, you brought up the Michael Brooks example, but think about what progressives did to Tulsi Gabbard, for example, in this last primary, a Hindu Army war veteran who got basically railroaded by the TYT, Michael Brooks audience, even to a certain extent, Abby Martin from RT really jumped on her as well. So this is the right, yeah. So this is the fear that I have, is that even any attempt that is, walking on eggshells for progressives that is attempted, I think will be slapped down. And that's my concern, is that even if they do try to go in there in good faith, I don't think progressive they would just slap them down, I think.
Well, if your thing is politics and you're not crossing that bridge into religion, if you're strictly going with politics, then appeal to them politically. Like, keep everything honest as possible. Appeal to them politically if that's all you understand. Don't go in there saying praise Jesus and join the group. Don't go in there with that shit. Go strictly with, hey, I think my ideas will change the world for the better, and appeal to them on that level. That's what I would say.
Right.
So I'm a cap it there. So the next question that I have, and bro, you'll be able to respond to this one first, is historically many wars and other conflicts throughout the world have been caused by differences in religion. The U.S. has a growing population of many religions now besides Christians. However, according to the Public Religion Research Institute, the PRRI, as of 2017, almost 70% affiliate themselves as some form of Christian, 24% do not affiliate themselves with any religion, and 6% affiliate themselves with another religion. This is more diverse than in 1976, when more than 90% of the US was Christian. Now, with these shifts in religious affiliations and the majority of the country still being Christian, should leaders on the left integrate religion to reach voters in the near future?
Now, this is going to be like the big picture thing that I really wanted to talk about, which is, you'll hear it a lot on my channel. I talk about morality a lot. That is the true bridge there. It's not religion. It's not politics. How do you appeal to other people? Like, really, like, to any group. I believe it's a moral sensibility. That's the thing you appeal to. It's, this is wrong, and, right can be murky. But everyone can honestly look at something like a war, where there's kids dying and kids starving, and you can say, this is wrong. That is the appeal that you can make to any group. And that's the big picture answer here. Appeal on a moral level, and you can attract any group. You don't have to worry about demographics or how many people are more Christian than any other religion, or are there more, Muslims coming around than Christians around. Like, who cares? Appeal to that moral sensibility that I think is at the core of every human, except for psychopaths. Fuck them.
All right, Israel.
So I take a little bit of contention with that, because your framing tends to indicate that secular people can't also, put out a message of morality, as if like, secular people aren't moral, or they don't have an understanding of it. I know that this is how a lot of religious people see, the secular left, and the right wing has done a good job of kind of grifting a lot of the religious community into thinking this. There's a lot of very prominent figures on the right who use religion as kind of a vehicle to get their political agendas passed. And I agree with you on the moral rhetoric of things, but even figures like MLK, weren't pure. They were immoral. They would participate in immoral acts, but they still understood that. And a lot of leftists, I think, today, they're unwilling to even try to make an attempt to that, right? I just don't see it. And waiting for the nation to get more secular, I don't think is a very wise position to take, especially seeing how active the right is with that demographic.
Well, I wasn't saying there isn't a lane for the secular-minded in regards to morality. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm saying it's a universal thing that appeals to humans. Now, that may, spear off into my own personal ideas about spirituality, but that's the framework I'm going with. I'm not by any means saying that secular people can't dive into morality, that they need a religion to do it. Like, no. But, when you bring up someone like MLK, right? And I just listened to one of his speeches, kind of preparing for this, and his last speech, right? I think it's called "To the Mountaintop" or something like that. Mm. And he's talking to sanitation workers, and he uses a religious parable, and he's talking about this long road to Jericho, from Jerusalem to Jericho, and there's someone on the street who's like a beggar or someone injured on this long ass road, and he brings up the idea of a good man versus a great man. The good man, he's just a church going guy. He doesn't want to touch this guy. He could be dangerous. He's late for church. He's got to move on past him. And he talks about the great man who will stop and help the Samaritan. And he poses the question, all right, I'm trying to remember it pretty good. The good man is in the question of what will happen to me if I help this guy, and the great man is in the question of what will happen to this man if I don't stop and help. And he did it. That whole little speech there was spoken on several levels at once. It was not just a parable from the Bible, it's also a parable of the sanitation workers, right? If we don't stop to help these sanitation workers, they're going to be in trouble. You have to stop and help them if you want to be in this category of a great man or a great leader or whatever. And that's the thing I'm talking about. It steps out of religion. It steps into the core of a human itself, which should touch secular and religious all alike, I think.
Yeah, but what I would say is that the religious community is very community oriented, and MLK came out of the religious community, which is why he was able to not only use that to his advantage and take that kind of community to propel him to a position where he can go into a working class environment and discuss from parables of a Christian Bible and apply that to the working class struggle. I don't know if secular folks who don't have a Christian background can enter a religious space without being part of the community first and convince them to follow them on a generic moral rhetoric. I just don't think that can happen.
I think it can, because I look at a guy like Kyle Kulinski, who is, religion bad, and his name's Secular Talk. I think he's talked about Dawkins a bunch of times and all these, atheists, material atheist guys. Yet I still sense something with him to where even if he may not have the language for it, if he sees a dead kid in the Middle East, he's going to say, that's wrong. He's going to say that's wrong. And it's, he may not have a moral philosophy behind it, or he may not have a religious connotation behind it, but he's going to have the notion of that's freaking wrong. And that thing, saying, oh, that's wrong, that's universal. I truly believe that's universal. Even the bad guys recognize that. That's why they would try to hide it, right? If someone commits a crime, commits a murder, they'll try to hide the murder because they know, oh, this is wrong somehow.
All right, so you get the last response, and then we'll move to the next question.
He's speaking leftist demographics.
Yes, but I believe that crossover is there. If you never told anyone, if you never said his name was Secular Talk or that he votes this way or supports this person, and you just let him talk about this idea of killing people is wrong or something, he he will appeal people, and even in the religious circles, he will appeal them to be like, oh yeah, I agree with that. So
Right, but we have examples of that, right? Bernard Sanders was one of Secular Talk's biggest kind of, or Kyle Kulinski was one of Bernie Sanders' biggest fans, really pushed his narrative, really agreed with a lot of his moral positioning. And Bernie Sanders got destroyed in the Black South, in South Carolina, where a lot of the older folks or conservative religious folks who saw Joe Biden, they see him in the churches, they see him in the pews, even if it's just grandstanding, they respond to community outreach.
All right, so that part
I disagree with that.
will come up again in a more specific question. What you just said, Israel. So
I mean, if Yelbro wants to respond to that, he can.
Sure, go ahead.
Real quick. Joe Biden was hardly the reason why he got those black voters, I think. I think a lot of it was Obama. A lot of it was Clyburn. A lot of it is these, I would say, pastors and preachers that could lead those churchgoers. Biden can't walk in those churches and command their, and get their vote. He needs the endorsement of the pastor or preacher saying, yeah, vote for Joe Biden. Or come out to the community center where we're all going to gather and talk about Joe Biden, how much we love him. It's those guys. So I think it's hardly Joe Biden.
Right, but those figures come out of that community. But I get your point.
All right, so the next question I have here is going to be for you, Israel, first, is what kind of message do you think leaders on the left should say in their speeches, and why would this work?
So I want to reference, Jimmy Carter as an example, right? He actually kind of maintained a moderate general rhetoric of, he didn't really kind of dive into his Southern Baptist religion too much, but just the very notion that Jimmy Carter was, a Baptist Christian from the South, really kind of helped him win the election of 1976 with that demographic. In fact, Jimmy Carter was the last Democrat, and arguably he's a progressive figure. A lot of progressives hold him in a good light as a president, right? He never really intervened in many foreign interventionist type of wars or anything like that. It was arguably a time of peace. And you can also reference his endorsement of Bernard Sanders, one of the most infamous or famous figures on the progressive left. Bernie Sanders famously sat down with the man. The man started institutions, organizations of religious Christian background that helped the poor, that really kind of walked the walk instead of talk the talk. And he was the last Democrat to win the South. And the South has so many electoral votes that I do not understand why progressives don't kind of adopt that similar type of message that he did, which was moderate. Like I said, he never really kind of capitulated or tried to pander to his religious base. He simply came at it like I would say Jordan, right? That Jordan would say like a kind of moral rhetoric, right? One that's kind of speaks to universal truths that all religions seem to believe in. So I would say that's a good start. It's just emulate those figures that are out there. And just to end it, I would say people like, I believe his name is Chris Hedges, right? I don't know if he's Baptist or what denomination he comes from. But I would say model yourself after the existing people who are out there in those trenches.
All right, Yelbro, your response?
Just real quick. All right. Can you just read the question again for me?
Yeah, so the question was, what kind of message do you think leaders on the left should say in their speeches, and why would this work? And do you think that this tactic will work, the tactic that Israel just gave?
Well, it could work, but what are we working towards? It could work in the sense of winning. Sure, it could work in the realm of winning, but what's the point if if your integrity's gone by the time you get there? And I'm not saying what Israel's saying is losing your integrity. I'm saying, if you throw away your true volitions, your true beliefs, for the sake of getting more support in the South or wherever, then I find your movement pointless if that's the case. As far as if what could be done, you bring up Chris Hedges, right? Now, I don't think that many people realize that he's like a legit, I guess, trained pastor or preacher or whatever. Like that's actually like he's actually went to school for that. He's actually ordained in that world. I don't think most people know that. And why not? Because I think his approach is to appeal to morality, which I would say is my answer to how you of the correct approach, right? When he talks about all the crappy things that happen in the world, right? He's very detailed about it, and he does not pander for 1 second. He will say fuck Bernie Sanders in a fucking heartbeat. That's how he's been. He's shown no lack of integrity in that world, and I think that's the thing that will appeal to people. Now the problem is mainstream media and all of that will not let this guy on TV and run his mouth. They're not going to let Hedges do something like that. But I think he has a pretty good approach.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The only, I guess, disagreement I would have with Chris Hedges is he does kind of, focus in, or actually I would say he doesn't focus in. He has a lack of focus on, the nation's issues, something that and as well as the culture war, something that the right is really, 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 really good at. They've had years and years of experience with a lot of figures who influence evangelicals to vote for Ronald Reagan, who wasn't even an evangelical. So I would say look, at a certain point, it's a question of, do you want to win or do you want to hold the moral high ground? If you want to hold the moral high ground, you're going to be there by yourselves. You have to understand the battlefield you're in. And progressives always complain how they never win, they never get a chance. And it's because they spread themselves too thin. Oh, immigration reform and all of this, and this is the moral thing to do, and here and this. And guess what? You might win a couple of people in the South or in the Christian realm or even in the Muslim realm, but as soon as you start talking about Green New Deals and doing all of this, and entering into those kind of Michael Moore areas where you're just kind of blanketing the airways with a dozen or so things, you start losing people like flies. Oh no, he mentioned this. I disagree. I'm out. Oh no, he mentioned this. Whereas if you laser focus something, which is something that the evangelical grifters on the right were able to do, right, with abortion, boom, center focused on one thing. That's how they win, and that's why the right wins and the progressives lose, in my opinion. So Chris Hedges, I think it's a good example, but laser focus in on the nation. Don't talk about how Islam is always oppressed. Don't talk about how this is always, or this or that. If you really want to win the majority of religious people, which are Christian, you have to, at some point, you have to decide what are the most important things. And am I willing to, at the very least, get these things accomplished, even if that means that on some cultural issues I don't get my victory, or even if that means that we have to wait around a little bit to get this or that. Again, if you want a revolution and you want to go down that path and you don't believe in the electoral process, my best wishes on your escapades. I support you.
All right.
I would say the taking the moral high ground is actually the thing to do, as in, for a strategy for winning as well. But you bring up the Green New Deal and these progressive policies, and you look at AOC, Bernie Sanders, these type of people, what did they not do? What was step one that you're supposed to do that they didn't do? Right? They tried to skip right to here's the better world solutions. What they forgot to do was point out the corruption that's surrounding them. Is that not taking the moral high ground? And what appeal would that have to people? If Bernie Sanders was one-on-one with Joe Biden and he pointed out all the corrupt crap that Joe Biden has done, you're telling me he won't stand out as oh, this guy's better, even to the South or whoever's watching it. Isn't that what Trump did? Didn't Trump appeal to the group morally? He turned into a fucking evangelical Zionist style politician, but when he was running, the character he was playing was a person who mops up corruption, right? Took apart Jeb Bush, took apart all those Republicans, and then took apart Hillary Clinton on moral grounds. And he did it, unapologetically. I'm not taking a backseat. I'm going to smoke you right now, and then we're going to move on. And he ended all those people. Bernie, AOC, are they taking on corruption that's surrounding them right now? with their steps up to being political powerhouses, were they cleaning out corruption anywhere? I don't think so. I think they tried
Weren't
to
they
go
doing
right
the exact same thing Donald Trump did, though? Arguably, they were the most leftist Democrats who spoke to those issues more than in the history of the United States. They were the ones who brought it up the most. They were the figures who really came to power on that. And they grandstood. Yeah, I agree with you. It was all grandstanding, but that's exactly what Trump did, except Trump laser focused in on 3 issues: immigration, abortion, and I forget the other one, but he laser focused on certain issues and was able to rally that community. And he pandered to those kind of evangelicals to rally around him, even though he's not morally the person that they would like. So how do you explain that? That would be my question to you, is how do you explain the evangelicals not, seeing the light and saying, oh my God, Bernie Sanders is actually better because, he's actually on the moral mountaintop. But they saw Donald Trump, the womanizer, right? 3 marriages, greed, and all of that, and they said, nope, I'm still going with him because he not only did he go down there to the South, not only did he enter those churches, but he spoke to the issues they most care about. And I don't think this is something the left does. And he pounded away on just those certain issues.
I think, well, you tell me which is more memorable from Donald Trump's campaign in 2016. Was it his stance on abortion, or was it Hillary going to jail? Which one had the larger impact?
I would say the abortion thing.
The abortion thing had a larger impact for him winning.
Yes, it got those people to come out and vote for him and win.
I'm thinking it's this guy's going to come clean up corruption. That's what I viewed it as. Now, maybe you have statistics that'll tell me I'm wrong about this, but I think it was a lot of the, like a feeling of a grassroots rebellion from people, like, oh, this guy, he doesn't give a shit. He's going to go up there and he's going to throw them all in jail and he's going to clean out corruption in Washington. Like, I think that was
I wouldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't be, like I said, I wouldn't be so certain, like, that was the only driving factor. I think there was a lot of factors, and one of those factors was definitely abortion and the immigration issue as well. I mean, he constantly went out there and talked about the wall, more so than he did about locking up Hillary.
Yes, the wall did come up in regards to, yeah, that was a big, I guess, kind of a big thing. I don't think any of his other policies work unless he's viewed as as someone who's going to, who's going to be more moral than the people they're used to. If that image isn't there, I don't think any of these other policies work. They might just view them as, oh, it's just another typical Republican. Why am I excited to vote for this guy? Like, what else? The good guy, bad guy narrative that's happening with the mainstream news and Donald Trump, right? These mainstream guys, CNN, MSNBC, they're bad guys. So if they crap on Trump, that makes him a good guy. It's still playing out that narrative of who's standing on top of the moral heap. I think it's still playing out that way. And I think that's, like I've said this before, I think morality is at the core of what politics is, or what it's supposed to be about. I think people on a subconscious level behave that way.
Yeah, but I think that his campaign wouldn't have thrived as much if he didn't pander to that evangelical base, personally.
I don't think it's as much as you think. That's my opinion, though. There's probably statistics that could show me I'm wrong, but I don't think, like, the whole, the pandering to the evangelicals and all that shit, I don't think it had as much of an impact as we might think. I think it was more of him being viewed as the guy who's going to clean up Washington.
And you think, what, that Bernie and the left failed at that? And so the next Bernie Sanders just needs to be more harsh against the powers that be?
They need to show us that, like, corruption can't survive around you. Like, there's no room for corruption in my administration or my campaign or whatever, and he hasn't shown that. I've heard this from a lot of people is, you know what? I gave up on Bernie when he started campaigning for Hillary. Now, what's that story telling you? That, oh, Hillary's a bad guy.
We're kind of yeah, we're kind of driving away from it, right? Like electoral Trump winning and all of that because of this or that. That's different. The absolute fact right now is that 77% of blacks who tend to be more conservative and religious are backing Biden, and they didn't back Bernie Sanders, the more morally superior candidate, right? So how do you address that? How do you address that? They can't know that if Bernie doesn't go and talk to them. They can't know that.
Yeah, there it is. Make the moral appeal.
Right.
Joe Biden has done this. He's done all these corrupt shit, all these corrupt actions.
Right, that's not the moral appeal. That's the moral destruction of the opposition.
That is the moral appeal, because that's saying, I won't do that. This guy does this, and just saying, I won't do that is a huge step up. Now, if you add in his progressive policy with it, like, here's my policy, and you may not agree with me, but I definitely mean well. I mean to help you out. That's what I mean to do.
Yeah, I would just say that Trump showed that, I don't know if that's, I mean, that could be a strategy that's winning, but I think Trump showed that, it doesn't matter. Even if you try to tear down the other person, if that person comes from the community, I think they're going to go with him because they believe in their community over everybody else, even if that means the moral, not the moral high ground for them.
Well, there's a section I would say is like that with the religious right. There's a section of people, a decent amount of people. They might more be in like the mega church crowd and that type of stuff, to where it's we need this, that, we need Israel to be this so that Jesus comes back someday, and you can't turn us away from that. And this guy says he'll help Israel out, so I work with that person. And
you mean like Donald Trump going to APAC and making his boring speeches there and pandering there?
Yes.
So so you admit that Donald Trump went to these places, right? It wasn't just his little corruption. Oh, these people are corrupt, blah blah blah. Everybody knew Donald Trump was from real estate. You think real estate is a clean industry? It's one of the most corrupt industries. These people are not naive or stupid. They just saw that he went into his community, he belongs to that community, and he represents the principles that they care about. And yes, corruption is one of them, but it's also what you were talking about, Israel and all of these other things.
And that's a small slither, and I don't think most of the people that voted for Trump even knew about how heavily, I love Israel Trump was. But,
Right.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question here. So according to systematic philosopher and author of the book, The Religion of Tomorrow, Ken Wilber, individual and societal human development of consciousness reflects evolutionary development of consciousness. In his book, Wilber argues and presents evidence of humans being at a transitional phase between the superstitious level of spirituality, of spiritual consciousness, to a more rational and more secular level of consciousness. But eventually, we will reach a post-rational state of spiritual consciousness in which society will be less materialistic and more spiritual. So, Yelbro, would you say it is more important for leftist leaders to incorporate religion, secularism, or spirituality in their platform?
I would say neither of them, because we're not. All right, I'll put it like this. All right, secularism and religion. I'm gonna put that like right next to each other, a little category right next to each other. I would say right above that is spirituality. Now the bridge between the two, I would say, is psychology. Psychology is the most important thing, but that's less. I don't think that would be done in groups like that. That's more of an individual dealing with their own mind and their own psyche. So once again, I would say the appeal is morality, to move people into the next stage of things, if you will. And I've heard of Ken Wilber before. I just forgot where. I think he's talking about the Matrix or something like that.
Israel,
I'm sticking with morality.
What's your response?
Yeah, I would say. Well, I think it's important to implement all three, right? I mean, if we're looking at this from the lens of electoral politics, right, which is arguably the first step in implementing, whatever ideas or philosophical, views of the world that you want to make real. You have to win these. You have to get the courts. You have to get the House of Representatives. You have to win these seats so that these organizations that you want to push that represent what you care about can go in there and make these things happen. Again, I think it's important to, I mean, the left is mostly secular. I think there are still religious demographics in that, in the left. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a tough question. It's really hard to choose between all of those. I mean, I think people have neglected the religious communities, and how you go about that, we're debating that now. I don't know the exact perfect path. I think that you need to start building those blocks, right? Building that road and building that bridge to them. I think the secular community, I think you already have that on the left. I think the left really kind of dominates that space. I would make the same argument, though, that the right needs to also make an appeal to that secular demographic, right? I think that they also need, if they want to win or if they want to win in the future, that's a growing demographic, so you need to make those appeals there. As far as the spirituality thing, everybody's spiritual in their own way, right? Do I think that, Democrat or Republican would benefit from, bringing that up? I think that they're different things, right? I mean, I don't know, Jordan, I don't know what you think, because you were kind of separating them even at the beginning of your argument of putting them in different kind of categories. So I don't know about spirituality, religion, and secularism, though. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
So
I think they're similar things, right?
which one?
Religion and secularism. I think they're both, two groups asking the same question, or saying the same thing, which is, I don't know shit about shit, but this thing seems to be the most appealing to me. And
Right, yeah, and that's why I think that you need to make appeals to both groups. But spirituality, would you say? I mean, nobody owns spirituality. The secular community doesn't own the spirituality. The religious communities don't. Even though both of them would say that they have more jurisdiction over the other or have more knowledge of the other. I mean, you could be anything. You can even believe in whatever. At a deeper level, it's individual, right? Like, your spirituality is something you own. I don't think that any group or whatever can claim that at all.
Yeah, that's why I said it'd be like weird with groups, because I think, like I said, I think the bridge is psychology, and that you can't really do that in groups, right? People need to work on their own minds and stuff. So
Yeah.
agree with you there, man.
All right. So Israel, was it a mistake for Bernie Sanders to not use people like Nina Turner or Cornel West or other prominent Christians to have a more religious message while campaigning in certain regions of the country? I'll let you answer that first, Israel.
Yeah, I don't think there would be too much disagreement between me and Jordan here on this one. Mm-hmm. And apologies for the kids' music. My kiddo just walked in the room. But what I'll say is that, Cornel West, he's definitely a religious figure, right? How much the Christian community overall, especially like the white community, respects him or anything. Give me 1 second, okay? Is that all right? Hold on.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yo, bro, sounds like you're in agreement with Israel.
Yes, that he should have used Nina Turner. And
all right, sorry about that.
Oh,
nice little jingle there.
You can go ahead, Israel.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, no, I was just saying that. Yeah, I think Cornel West and all those figures are very important, right? And I don't think there'll be much disagreement here. My criticism of them would probably be that sometimes they lean in too much on the comrade talk, especially Cornel West. I don't know. I don't want to make assertions of his political leanings, but I do think he kind of, may not be seen too well, especially with like the evangelicals, the Southern Baptists, and all of that. Definitely amongst the black community, I think even there's some contention and there's some division amongst black religious people, older people, on Cornel West himself as a figure representing them. So I think that could bring up some problems. But yeah, I think Bernie Sanders' campaign didn't do enough there to utilize that. But again, it's on Bernie Sanders himself too, as a political figure, to go into the black community, the religious community, and he himself refused to make a religious claim. Right? He talked about his Jewishness, his Jewish background on CNN, but he said, "Oh, I believe in this grander thing. If you suffer, I suffer." Which goes to the morality thing, Jordan, I think, a little bit more than the religious thing, right? Is that something the religious communities want to hear? I don't think so. So I think that, he didn't lean on that as much as he should have, but he would have gotten exiled from the secular community, and that's the problem, is there's that kind of, division and unwillingness from not just us. We could probably see ourselves supporting, even if he kind of, cringed me out a little bit with religious talk. I can still see, okay, he's making the effort because he wants to win. He wants to implement that morally superior agenda. So I would be willing to kind of accept that. But others might have contention there and say, nope, you're selling now. You're pandering to these, backward people, and we're not gonna accept you. So it's hard. It's a hard one.
Just to add on to your point about Bernie and the being more outward about religion. If you remember, in 2016, according to WikiLeaks, that Hillary Clinton actually used that as a strategy against Bernie Sanders, going to southern states and telling them, oh, he's an atheist. You don't want to support an atheist. They were using that as a talking point to hurt Bernie Sanders amongst religious voters. But back to the question. Not even looking at it in the discussion we're having with religion versus secularism and all that, Nina Turner and Cornel West, I don't think they could do anything but help Bernie Sanders, especially Nina Turner, because of her personality, how she just goes after people. Almost everything about her is an upgrade for Bernie Sanders. And yes, her in particular would have more of an appeal with black voters in the South, even church people. Maybe the thing I might knock her down a little bit for is she might get a little too racial for me. You know what I mean? Everything's racist. The system is racist. This is racist. I'm like, all right, I got you.
Right.
But
I agree with you there.
Yeah, but as far as attracting those two, helping out and attracting religious voters, I'm not so sure. I don't know, because I want to keep placing it back into what I really believe, which is these guys look like they fight the bad guys. Thus, using just dumb guy logic, people will look at that and oh, I think this person's trying to help me because they mean to do good, and they're willing to put their neck on the line to talk about these bad guys over here. And I think if Bernie Sanders was being blatantly honest in regards to Joe Biden and Donald Trump, not just Joe Biden, but also Donald Trump. Remember, he hasn't been blatantly honest about Donald Trump. He called him, the worst president in modern history? That's fucking bullshit. Everyone knows that's bullshit. Why are you saying that shit? So it's he needs to start becoming, really point out the corrupt aspects of Donald Trump, really point out the corrupt aspects of Joe Biden. They're not they're not laced with policy to where people get lost and shit. They're pretty basic. This guy takes money here and does this with it. So that means Biden's going to vote this way because he takes money from these guys. Trump is in war with, or he continued the war in Saudi Arabia because they buy our weapons or whatever. Make it very basic for people, and I think the moral thing will have an appeal to wide ranges of people. They just need to understand what's happening. They don't understand Trump said, we're keeping the oil. They don't understand Trump vetoed the Saudi bill to get our money out of Saudi Arabia. They don't know these things. So if Bernie wants to step up, he's got to become a cleaner. Let everyone know, I'm here to clean this shit up, and here's where the dirt is. Here it really is. Kind of like what Tulsi was doing.
Yeah.
All right. So my next question is, you can answer this one first, y'all, bro. So many progressives progressive lefties are now in limbo after the failure of having a progressive candidate reform the Democratic Party in the 2020 primary. So do you think that a lack of a religious or spiritual message plays a part in that?
I'm gonna end up having the same answer over and over. It's the lack of moral appeal,
Okay.
right? Now, people can read, like I've read. I believe Bernie Sanders means to do good. He means to take whatever he has to make the world a better place. I believe that. I think a lot of people believe that. Even people that are like against him, right? Even Trump supporters probably look at him like, oh, Bernie's just stupid, but he's not the worst guy ever. He's not Hillary Clinton. I see Israel shaking his head like, I think they lean in that area. But
Yeah.
fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it.
Well, I was just going to say that, I tend to agree with most of what you just said, but the thing that I have a problem with is PR. Progressives are terrible at PR and marketing. They're the worst. And I think that, that they may have the moral rhetoric, and Jordan may be right about, look, you're just not utilizing it appropriately, right? And also, don't speak to it in an echo chamber, right? Go into these places, battle Donald Trump on that morality question on, like, you think this guy's the morally superior character? He did this, he does that, he does. I agree with that. Be more confrontational. Be more confrontational, but know where to go. Know where you need to win the numbers. And that may seem like a sellout position, like a very business tactical, like you're just caring about winning. But at the end of the day, that I think is how you take away from the liberals what they care about. That's how you take away what they most care about, which is the moderate Republican vote in the swing states and the South. If you could capture the South and take away the swing voters from the liberals, they're done. There are paper tigers, like Kyle Kalinske says. They are, because they're held up by those votes. And maybe it's because they don't understand and they haven't philosophically taken the time to think about these things. Or maybe subconsciously they do know, like Yelbro was saying about Bernie Sanders is stupid, but hey, he's not the worst. So maybe they do understand it, but it's just that they haven't gotten that marketing that Republicans and right-wingers and religious right has been really good at. Is boom, I'm gonna bombard you with all of this, and they eat that stuff up. So if the left isn't willing to stoop down to that level, I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I think that you're just going to be a marginalized minority in a Democratic Party that you hate, and maybe that's where the left wants to be. I honestly don't know. I'm here to try to help and have these conversations, but I do think that they need to introduce that more into their rhetoric. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Maybe the Michael Brooks spirituality thing, not the best idea, not the best way to go about it. Also, they're very inhibited by that liberal woke element in their ranks that wants to make these don't talk about like the LGBTQ thing in a negative light. Don't ignore that community, because if you ignore us, we're going to be really loud and we're going to drag you screaming to our side and capitulate to us. I don't think you can win the religious vote that way either. So you have to make these decisions, But that's what I'll say.
Well, I'll just say that my idea has never been implemented in politics, which is appealing on moral grounds. And it's not just saying I'm better; it's also saying these guys suck. Biden, Trump, Clinton, whoever, like all these corrupt people, like, make sure they know that they're corrupt. And I think that's universal. Churchgoers, atheists, whoever, college kids, I don't know. I truly think that would appeal to them.
I would say I agree, but say it next to the pastor that they see every Sunday. Say it next to the preacher who they go to in time of need. These are their morality and spirituality guides. And that's how this all ties together: morality, spirituality, religion. Speak what you're saying, but speak it to them through these figures, right? The ones who you feel are, that guy's not that morally corrupt as a right-winger, or that guy is actually one of the rare lefties that I should prop up, right? oh, I should prop up this Chris Hedges like figure who this community in Dallas really goes to and talks to, right? That Hispanic brother and sister guy who, you know, goes and has a little commune, a little church up there. These are the people I should like elevate as a progressive and say, this is how I'm going to win. I'm going to go into these areas where it's heavily religious, right? I'm going to stand next to these people who have some kind of community that I can latch onto and speak this moral rhetoric to them. And this, oh, that guy's not moral. That big church across the street that has millions of dollars funneled in through it, through businesses and politicians, let's call them out. And maybe you can start trickling some of those folks over to these more morally pure, you know, preachers, pastors, you know, fathers, all of that. So that's the only thing I'll add to that.
All right. So my next question is for you, Israel, to answer first. So according to Jonathan Haidt, in his book called The Righteous Mind, there exist 6 moral foundations that evolved in humans. The first one is caring. The second one is fairness / proportionality. The third one is loyalty. The fourth one is respect for authority. The fifth one is sanctity / purity. And the sixth one is liberty. So Haidt presented evidence of how Republicans are much better at capturing all 6 of these moral foundations in their ads, in their campaigns, in their speeches. Meanwhile, Democrats, they mainly focus only on caring, fairness / proportionality, and arguably liberty. However, many evolutionary psychologists and spiritual philosophers argue that lefty liberalism is a step above consciousness to conservatism. So do you think that focusing more on fairness and caring is a step forward in societal evolution, or should the left go back and try to incorporate all 6 of these moral foundations?
So I don't think it's a question of moving forward or going back or, you know, conscious levels above or below. I really do think that, look, politics is a dirty game. It's about PR. It's about marketing. So if you do have the moral high position and you want to, you know, implement that, then you have to figure out what your demographic wants, right? What does your consumer base want? And pander to that. I'm sorry, that's just the way it goes. And, you know, I think that, look, think about it this way, right? Liberals and lefties, right? They really have a contention with authority, right? Which is good. I think that they're 100% right when they call out, you know, war criminals, all of this. But what does the right do very well? They really pander that authority thing, right? Like, listen to the police. Oh, he got what was coming to him because he didn't listen to authority. You know what I mean? Oh, you think China's gonna play nice? Nope. We got to keep a tough stance and position. And the right uses that. I don't know what kind of authority appeal the left can make. You know, maybe Jordan, you have something to chime in on that. What is moral authority that the left could use? Is it an authority to, you know, social programs? Is it an authority to your neighbor? An authority to do right? There's ways that you can, you know, utilize. What did you call it? Those 6.
The moral foundations.
Yeah, those 6 moral foundations to your benefit, right? Without compromising your moral high ground, right? Just packaging them in a way that they can understand that. So I don't know if it's like, you know, just to stick on that authority thing, I don't know how the left can utilize that, but the right definitely does a really good job of doing that, right? The Colin Kaepernick, oh, no, you're disrespecting authority, our service members, the people who have died for that flag by kneeling. How dare you? Even though he might have a moral argument that's a lot more superior than the right wing who's, you know, bashing him over it. Guess what the right's using? They're using the liberty thing, right? Our service members fought for our liberties. They fought for you to be able to kneel down, right? Always kind of stepping away from the actual discussion that the left really wants to hammer them on and moving 6 steps ahead of them and saying, nope, liberty. I'm making an appeal for liberty because I'm saying that you should be grateful and listen to authority because that authority gave you that liberty to be able to kneel down. It's like, well, you're going around in circles on me. Yes, but they're doing it in a successful way. Just look at all the videos, right? The ratios. Look at all the conversations around this. Arguably, the South and the more religious people would back some of those people who make those arguments against Kaepernick. So, as far as the other things, the caring and all of that, I mean, I don't know. I think the right just uses those 6 a lot better than the left. It's all marketing.
All right, yo, bro.
That I agree with. That what we're talking about here is marketing. If we're going in that lane, whereas it's not really caring as much as it's showing you care more, or something like trying to appeal that I care more, like advertising it. So yes, that is marketing. But I do want to say that I disagree with that whole notion of 6 things that are, what are they called? Moral foundations or something?
Yep, moral foundations.
That here's what I would say the moral foundation is. I would put it in the realms, and let's call it moral intelligence. I would say, do you mean well, and how much do you know about the world? I'd put it simple as that, right? Do you mean to be helpful, and how much do you know about the world? If I know that fire burns people, then I won't light people on fire because I mean them well. Like, as simple as that. And can the quote unquote left do that? No frickin' problem. Anyone could frickin' do that. We all understand that, like, kids dying, being shot, killed, bombed, starved. Like, we all understand that's bad. Okay, is there anyone around me who partakes in that? Okay, will I point them out or not? That's what it comes down to. Will a quote-unquote lefty leader point these things out, right? Forget those 6 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Have they even got to the point where they even call out Barack Obama? Have they even gotten there? No. They have not even reached that step. So how are we going to see any type of progress? The most I heard was maybe Ilhan Omar, as far as like popular quote-unquote lefties, progressives. Ilhan Omar, what'd she do? She took it back. Once the conversation's like, if you see like Bernie versus Biden in a debate, and it's like, wait a minute, Bernie keeps saying Iraq war over and over and over again. What about Libya? Did anything happen there? How about Syria? Did anything happen there? And it's like, how come this guy doesn't go on about this?
Wait. So did MLK call out his brother in arms, Malcolm X, for some of the wrong paths that MLK saw him taking? I don't think I ever heard MLK criticized. In fact, they had a meeting, right, for unity.
Okay.
He never openly criticized them because he understood that sometimes you have to build these bridges with folks that you disagree with in order to get the grander, result. So I would just say,
am I talking about disagreeing, or am I talking about this person does not mean to do well for the populace? This person is not the same. I want to say they're not even the same species as me. If they're in the realm of like, we're not here to actually help people. Okay, is it apathy? Do you like bombs going off? Like, they're completely different worlds right there. As far as MLK and Malcolm X,
right,
don't they
Black
have
Panthers, violence?
Yeah, but don't
Black
they have the notion of meaning well? Isn't that in there? The notion
but they
want to help our
weren't they
people.
like also firebombing stuff and doing things that MLK saw as like, no, we need to take the non-violent approach. Those are 2 different worlds as well. Violence versus non-violence.
Yes, but what's the intention? I intend to help whoever out, my people or whatever. My intention is still to help. What is Joe Biden's intention? Is it to help people? How about Donald Trump? He's trying to help people, really? Like, I don't.
From his perspective, probably.
Evidence says no, and I don't even think. No, I disagree with that as well.
Do you think he actually knows he's doing bad?
I think he doesn't give a shit. I think other people run the frickin' country. I think his advisors, his generals, they run the frickin' thing. He's just a mouthpiece.
But does he not? So you're saying Trump? Not even Trump. So you're saying that people are incapable of holding their own moral and like reflection. So I think Trump, to a certain degree, has a core that he looks in and says, "Okay, I'm doing the right thing. I think I'm doing the right thing." So I think he has that, even as despicable as people might think Trump is. I think deep down he wants to do good, even if he is a puppeteer or a puppet.
Yeah, I don't see it.
You don't think he has the capability of doing that, or
Oh,
that he
I didn't
does that
say
at night?
I didn't say he doesn't have the he doesn't have the capability. I'm saying he doesn't use it. I'm saying here's what I say. I say, okay, someone, their intention, they mean well, and there's the intention of not meaning well. Now, the category of not meaning well has a whole bunch of things in it. It could be, I could mean bad, I could mean, malice, or it could mean I don't give a shit, like I don't care, apathy, and I'm leaning him towards the apathy. I think he's.
And same with Biden, right? You would make the same argument for Biden? Or he's more malicious, like he actually has a malicious
He might be more
intent.
malicious. He might be more malicious.
So he's the greater evil than Trump.
They work out the same to me. They're both facets of ignorance. So.
It's weird though, because you have such a nuanced take on morality, religion, and spirituality, and there's so much to dissect there. But these two candidates, they're the same, potato. They'll have the same result.
Well, yeah, I view them as not meaning well. That's it. I just put them in that they don't mean well. They shouldn't
right, but is there a difference between the result of Biden's not meaning well, like that world, versus the result of Trump not meaning well, that world? So maybe they're both equally bad worlds, but there's nuanced differences in how they both end up becoming. Could that be?
Well, I think things play out different, but that's a whole question about Republicans and Democrats, as far as like establishment, traditional Republicans and Democrats. I think
one brings in the establishment Democrats, one brings in the establishment Republicans.
I think they're just playing a really long form game of good cop, bad cop, to where the Democrats
they both benefit from each other.
Yeah, and
what is it? It's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah, Democrats are playing the good cop of, we're smarter, we understand things better, we're smarter, and the Republicans are like, fuck you, like they're ready to just all out policy. Fucking George Bush in Iraq Wars, all out.
I agree with you. I just had to push back a little bit on that because it did seem like there was a nuanced take of your position on religions and stuff, but when it came down to these two characters, But no, I think explaining it, I agree with you, right? It's like it's two different bad worlds, but they're all controlled by the same entities, and ultimately it's kind of a big show, right? They're all just kind of showboating and playing this game, because ultimately they're represented by the same entities, the same typical organizations. Maybe those organizations are a little bit different. They have contentions on cultural things, what directions they want to go in. Maybe the Biden administration makes capitulations to the woke identity politics, like pandering. Yeah. Oh, now we have a board of directors of these warmongering companies, and they're women. That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. And I just want to add something in here. I was watching Opie and Anthony today, like their old friggin' things with Patrice O'Neill, and they were going over a Alex Jones documentary. I think it's called like the Obama Deception or something. But they were talking about like the way he looked. Like they're saying Obama looks like he wants to get out of there as fast as possible. Like once he leaves the White House, he's gonna be like, yes, thank fucking God I'm out of here. Like maybe these guys they just take the job, they realize what power comes with it, but they don't really realize what's going on when they're in office.
So
and then
go ahead, sorry.
And then over time, they just become cold to it, apathetic, and they're like, fuck this, get me out of here.
Franco, if I could just ask him one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, would you say that local offices hold more influence over people's lives than the presidency then? Like, there's more chance there's more hope there. There's less opportunity for, like, corruption and influence?
I would say less corruption in local offices than in the national office?
Yeah, like it seemed like you said that their strings are too tight. They can't do much, and they
have less power.
The strings looser.
Yeah, I think that if they have less power, so they're less likely to get corrupted. They get to they don't have as much responsibility, so they don't have as much to abuse. That's the way I see it. Yo, bro, you were gonna say something?
I'd say there's a lot less of like I guess you can call like a political entourage, right? If we look at like the Trump administration, I think these generals have a lot more say even and Obama and all the past presidents, they have a lot more say in what happens militarily as far as what we do overseas, right? Right? They're probably like, we have Soleimani, we have our targets locked on him. What are we going to do here? And Pence will be like, kill him. I mean, Trump, what do you think? Kill him. Yeah.
It seems like they have to
just go with it.
desensitize themselves more when they're in that position with such power. And they're also surrounded by a lot of people that are acting like they don't care about what happens to people in foreign countries. So then they're like, oh, I mean, they're not caring that much. I guess I don't have to care either.
Yeah,
I think it's a group psychology thing once you're up there.
Yeah, and they probably walk in without any like a hardened, moral backbone in the first place, to where they can become immune to any type of
that's every
corrupt
politician,
actions.
right? That's every politician.
Well, this is why
A politician with
people,
backbone.
Yeah, that's why I tell everyone, I'm like, yeah, as soon as you see one of these slip ups to where it's like, what the fuck was that? You should be telling them, like, dude, start over at the ground level of politics again, then prove yourself on your way up again. That's, it's not realistic, but I just throw it out there,
All right, I think you guys are both gonna like this question here. Yo, bro, you can respond to this one first. Would independent media pundits, on YouTube and Rockfin, would it be more effective for them at building a bigger anti-establishment coalition if they started to incorporate more spirituality? Or should they try to incorporate a more religious message / pander more to religious people?
What was the last part of that?
Should they pander more? Should they try to incorporate more spirituality in their message, or should they try to incorporate more of a religious message and pander more to religious people?
Well, this goes into like the video the response I made to Israel, where it's like, dude, if you're not about this, then why are you like, you shouldn't be in that lane. Like, don't talk about it then. That's why the pandering thing is an automatic no for me. I'll never advise to do it. I don't care about the winning aspect or whatever. I'll always say no to that. As far as should these individual, independent YouTubers, should they actually take time to consider some metaphysical concepts or some religious concepts, or even, if they are religious already, some atheistic ideas and concepts, then I say 100% yes for your own development, and I'm pretty sure it'll play a role in how you view the news and how you talk to people and the audience's response to you when they realize, like, oh, this person has multiple palates, he has different flavors going on here. So, yeah, I would say, as an individual, please do your work.
Yeah.
All right, Israel.
I mean, I guess I would tend to agree. It just depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to win electoral politics, then I think that you should start implementing that. By the way, they should also do it to third parties. I think the left media is kind of also propping up the duopoly of the Republicans and Democrats. Every or a Republican, or what did the Democrats do? What did the Republicans do? Aren't they so horrible? Meanwhile, the YouTube super chats. Meanwhile, the Patreon money keeps coming on, and because at a certain point they're also beholden to that. So I think that if they care about electoral politics, don't just talk about spirituality and religious figures, or point the light at religious figures who are leftists, who are doing good work around the country. Also third parties, right? And also try to infuse, I think that's the right word, the third party option, and pitch that towards like these demographics that you are now in a strategic mindset and say, okay, I know what I got to do to win. Like, think about this, right? The Southern strategy, what happened there? It was all about integration and segregation. And as soon as the Republicans saw that Goldwater's focus won them the South for the first time, even though they lost, right? They lost by huge margins, right? To LBJ, he won the 64 election, the South. And they said, well, guess what? I know what we're going to do now. We're most of the electoral votes, the South and the swing states. And where are mostly religious people concentrated? The South and the swing states. So they made that appeal. So I think if progressive indie media cares about, maybe not necessarily religion, but third parties and things like that, don't just talk about them during the election cycle when, tensions are high and people are feeling demoralized because their candidate didn't win or the reform agenda didn't pass. So we're going to bring up how Jesse Ventura might enter the race. Aren't we all like... And then 2021 comes around, and the entire year you don't see one third party segment, right? But then election cycle comes back around, and they say maybe if we do 2 more or 3 more segments, the revolution will finally come, brothers. So it applies to that, but it also applies to the religious thing too. Don't just complain about how religious people are backwards. Don't just complain how people are spiritual people are more conservative, care about more family values. Go and reach out, talk to them, do more segments about it. And use the algorithms to try to promote that to that community and get that community, because that also helps you, by the way, with the money situation. That also helps you, talk to people about your other stuff, like your other political views that you would love them to have. But that's kind of just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I agree on the outreach. It's just don't do it for getting a candidate to win, and don't do it for money. That's me.
Right. Isn't it funny too how all of these progressive outlets rail against capitalism, but I bet you there's LLCs. I bet you they're LLCs, and I bet you they're corporations.
TYT's the king of. So they've been crapped on enough for that.
Right. So. Let's spare them that.
Yeah.
If I could throw in my 2 cents, and I think that spiritual work would benefit them in seeing things more objectively, and they could better detect their own hypocrisy in many cases, which is causing a lot of divide. I think a lot of the big indie pundits need to reflect on what the mistakes were, not just on Bernie Sanders. It's easy to criticize what's on the outside. They got to reflect and criticize themselves and see what they could have done better. So before we hit the closing statements, I want
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Real quick. When you started saying that, it made me think of the Humanist Report and Nico House when they had their discussion.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it's almost like the Mike Figueredo dude was like locked into this get Bernie to win thing. And then when he realized it's not going to happen, he stepped there like, oh shit, who did I burn as I was trying, running this street to get Bernie elected? It's like, what? It's almost, I don't know. It's viewing it like, oh, did you wake up from a dream you're in, where you're just, causing havoc everywhere, and then you realize like, oh shit, I'm Mike. I forgot I was Mike the whole time, and
right.
I'm not a douchebag. Why was I being a douche to this person or that person? Was it all to just get Bernie elected? Like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, I did a segment on that. It looks like he was going through a lot in his life, and he was also reading a lot, and reading really helps with your self-reflection, and I think that really helped Mike Figueredo, and I hope to see more growth like that with other indie pundits. Some people I don't have a lot of hope for. David Pakman seems like he's like a sociopath, but that's what we really need, and we need people, like us, like to keep the bigger indie pundits on check when they're stepping out of line with certain issues. So I want to thank both of you guys for coming on and debating, keeping it in good spirits, and also I want to thank you guys for what you do in your YouTube channels. So you guys want to give your closing statements now? We can start with you, Yelbro.
All right. So if you've listened to this entire thing, you should probably know by now that my big answer to all of this, as far as the questions about should the lefty progressive type start going more after the churchgoers and the religious type in the South and all of that, my answer has consistently been appeal to them morally. That'll forever be my answer. Like, show that you're the good guy and that these guys suck, that they don't mean you church-going people well, that, these politicians will only say this, God bless this or God bless that, just to get your vote. And that should be instinctively viewed as wrong. So, like I said, the biggest thing that any group that means well, that means to do the world a better, make the world a better place. Morality, appeal to people morally.
Sweet. Yeah, I guess I'll say that, I tend to agree with you. And I think for the most part, we agreed on more things than we disagreed on others. And I think, our disagreement was more about strategy and how to go about it. I guess, I don't want people to think that, you can like give up your moral, positioning and all of this. But I think that strategy and PR is if you really want to win, it's something that should be considered. So, and again, I say, I don't think that, you should capitulate or pretend to be like for these Christian values all of a sudden, but definitely aligning yourself with figures who are, committed to that community, who are representatives of that community and who sway a lot of those people. It would be hard to find some on the left, but definitely propel or, project them in indie media, project them in the fight, the movement. Include them, inclusion. The left's supposed to be all about inclusion. Maybe practice that a little bit more with people who don't really necessarily, hold your views, even though they do, even though religious people do hold mostly leftist views. So there's something that you can do there. You hold the moral high ground. You hold the rhetoric. You understand the rhetoric that's in the Bible, the Quran, the whatever the other ones are. So use that to your advantage, but don't manipulate people like the right does. It's tough. It's a tough question, but that's what I'll say.
All right, so we can end it there. I encourage more philosophical debates like we just saw here. And to everybody, thank you guys so much. Don't forget to subscribe to Frank Analysis, HMO Podcast, and also Yellowbrook Road, and to Big Talk, Little Talk. So take care, everybody, and stay informed. Thanks for watching that segment of Hear Me Out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below so you can get the latest on sports, pop culture, and progressive politics. Stay informed.